Cool. So it was Social Venture Australia who was running it. They had a panel of speakers. The first was Kay Patterson, who I think is the commissioner for something, and she's got, or I'm not sure if she's still the current or she has been. She had 3 things to her platform that she really wanted to bring to the light, and one of them is the older women's risk of homelessness, and so that's what she spoke about. And she has got a primary focus too, it sounds like, for the group that I'm in, which is women with modest assets that don't qualify for social housing, but don't have enough to outright purchase a property.
Yeah.
And so she's really interested in whatever government can do, and shared equity is kind of the term that she tossed around, which I think is what really is that what we're looking at as a WINK group, is trying to work out a shared equity model.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Kobe Maglin also spoke. I highlighted the names of people. I scribbled all over the place because they had the chat available to just everyone, plus the talking, and there was 400 or so attendees. It was really hard to just keep track of anything, and but there was and so I was trying to, pick out really interesting people. So there was a woman named Kath Gribble, who was there just in the chat. I don't know what she looks like. She was doing, how do you say it? Seroptimist International. So she was there representing, and someone else named Carol was also there from that group. And so I think they'd be a really lovely group to find out more about. I think I saw something from them on Facebook just recently as well about what they want to do. There was a woman, Shirley Rendell, from the Australian Graduate Women's Network. So people were dropping their contact details into the chat, and I think they're going to share the chat with us all. So I can send a copy to you with all of this, if you like.
Wonderful, thank you.
The woman that spoke at length about her own experience name was Marianne Wright, and she now works for HAAG, the capital HAAG, I think it is, which is something specifically for homelessness. And so she was really talking about how easy it is to fall through the cracks as an older woman, because especially she was sharing in her story that, she had worked plenty, she had education, she had a health condition that she needed to pretty much finance the care of, or that's what she chose to do. But between doing that for herself and not being able to work at the same time, she went through all her savings. So next thing she knew, she was on Centrelink, having to do what they told her to do, and she found that to be really disgusting and demoralizing, and felt absolutely railroaded into very poor quality training for poorly paid positions, of which were only of a casual nature anyway. And when she did those positions, she felt underskilled and unable to really meet the client's needs. So that she was really unimpressed with all of that. And she said that really her own personal isolation, as she went through her savings, got more and more, because she no longer had money to spend on social engaging things. She no longer felt comfortable going to any events because, she didn't have money for presents or, the meal to be shared. So she just stopped going to all those kind of things. And she wasn't particularly digitally savvy, so she didn't connect online. And she just sort of found herself very much not even knowing who to even reach out and for support from. Yeah, it was full on. It was just, but it was gorgeous. She was really gorgeous. Yeah. So that was that. She spoke, and that was super powerful. And Helen Conway also spoke. She's from the Workplace Gender Equity something. And she was really great, talking about how we really need to apply a gender lens, specifically when we're trying to do any kind of programs or legislation, because it just doesn't work if we don't. There was lots and lots of really lovely sort of people jumping in the chat. Another person that spoke was Emma Power, who I think she's a researcher, and in the conversation, she said 2 of her articles are published today or yesterday. So if people want something easy, accessible to read around this issue, and I checked them out, and they're accessible. Yeah, there was another interesting guy who put his name in the chat, Wallace Fan, who is some sort of financial guy, and he wants to help drive capital to projects. So we're all jotting down that detail. So I've got that one, or that'll be in the chat as well. Sue Thompson is making a documentary, which was called she said to get her at under.cover.doco@gmail.com. And there was another group called the Equanimity Project.org that said they were releasing something very shortly that would be pertinent to all of this. I don't know what it would be. And basically, there was a lot of support for further networking opportunities to just keep this topic hot and moving along.
Oh, wow. I have all this excitement bubbles that this conversation is so on the table right now. I'm remembering the research last year for Homelessness Week, and that was the first time that there'd been mention of the fact of this cohort of women, 50 plus, were at, I think last year it was 30% increase in the numbers going homeless because of circumstances like that are particularly gendered. Because if women take time off work to raise children, they don't have as much super. If women are the home carers and then have the death of a spouse, or it's mind blowing, like the vulnerability of women, especially carers. And that's where I think, of course, that's my personal story as well, but it's also now my social mission with Wise Women Rising is looking at ways that as a collective, as a voice, we can take care of one another. We can raise the profile of conversations like this. Our conversation yesterday at the meeting was primarily around like we did a breakout circles, small groups, about how is COVID impacting you now, and what do you think Wise Women Rising can step up and do to contribute? Because it was just like, the night before I was having a meltdown, I wrote till 2:30 in the morning. I wrote an article. I haven't pressed publish on it yet, but I might do today. And it's really the story of before COVID, women 50 plus were suffering quietly, like renters suffer quietly. And they don't even know that they're suffering quietly and on their own and in isolation, and that everyone else is suffering quietly, alone and in isolation. It's not just renters. It's for me as a carer, I was struggling with the financial, devastation of it, all the social isolation of it that Marianne was talking about this morning, and having all of those areas of your well-being breakdown, and then ending up in systems that actually treat you like a second or third class citizen, actually reinforcing your sense of I'm powerless, I'm shameful, I'm not capable. Like, it's just super disadvantageous to anyone reclaiming themselves. And, you know, the sort of shame, blame culture. And I talked about that actually with carers. It's like you almost shame, blame as a carer by association. Like, if you're hanging out trying to care for someone who's got a drug addiction, well, why are you doing that? You're an idiot. Like, instead of, and like, if you pour all your resources and your time and your energy into loving and caring, and you don't look after, well, it's your own bloody fault. Like, that's the system that we've come from. Or if you've raised kids instead of working as well as raising kids, well, then you're an idiot as well. And like, the self-responsibility thing only goes so far in this argument for me. I think what comes up for me now is, okay, so I've been super grateful because I had Shares and Irene and all these amazing women in my circles. I was doing morning circles. I was reclaiming my own sense of power after shame. I was remembering that I was capable because I was being asked to step up to do things that were meaningful. I had a sense of social conscience because of what I'd been through and what I'd seen, and I knew I wasn't alone. Like, I rebuilt a social fabric that enabled me to start to rebuild all of my other areas of well-being, because they helped me get inside my head and stop being so brutal and believing all the things that which I was being told about, that I was at the rubbish end of the social heap. There's something so transformative about coming through that process, and actually now being in a place where I'm like, no, I'm ready now. I've got a voice now. I'm like, and I've got a group of women who are beside me now, like, look out, world. I'm going to advocate for women. I'm going to get this, you know, voice happening, especially not just around housing either, but, you know, the fact that we all did breakouts yesterday and went, what could we do? And was like, oh, well, we were medicine. We were basically social medicine. When we went online and did the retreat, and we offered ritual and play and self-reflection and like all sorts of beautiful creative processes, and like, we were medicine. And I just want to go, like, let's turn it from a retreat event thing into a fully fledged community thing that's happening all the time, that people can come in and drop in and go, oh, who's online this week? Who's offering circles? Who's doing what? Like, how do we shift out of the retreat event mindset into how do we run this as a community? And there's like $200,000 worth of funding being offered at the moment by the government department, Let's Stay Connected. That's the funding grant. It's called Let's Stay Connected. And it's for community organizations that are doing work to help people stay connected in these isolating times.
It's funding for you.
Oh my God. So I've just gone, okay, I need a team though, because I'm across so many things at the minute that I've read the funding requirements. And one of the things is that might trip us up is that we need to be either, see, we're straddling a couple of things as a community. We're an incubator, so we could be considered a business association.
Right.
That could be easy to register. It could be easier to register us as a business association than it is to register us as a co-op.
Right. Yep. Because
co-op has a whole heap of other legislative requirements that a business association probably doesn't. Right. But this is the research I need to start doing, because to be able to receive the money at that level, like, I think up to 50,000 we can receive without having to jump hoops, but over 50,000 we have to jump some substantial hoops, which is fair enough. And I'm happy to do the hoop jumping if it means that we can invest in the community and actually scale and support more women and run our community and pay our women to turn up and do their sessions. Like, that was the impetus anyway, with getting to the point where we could be a co-op, where we could charge a fee for membership, but then pay the women who started presenting and hosting based on like vote with your feet, open space tech. If if a whole bunch of people ended up open space and walking towards your session, then you get paid. Like working out the systems for how to do that, so that we're actually not just doing it for the love of it, because we do love it, but doing it for the restorative empowerment that comes with being paid for doing work you love. So I don't know where all that comes from. I'm in this passionate place of readiness to be a voice, and part of it, I think, the process I just did with Cherie and Irene, they've been my finance buddies for 2 years. Yeah, we get together regularly, and we do art processes every quarter where we dream forward, and we put our art stuff down on. We create paintings and pictures and all sorts of things, and we dream our new quarter into being. So we get connected to the energy and the creativity of like, and so I think that's what's here, is that my heart's wide open with all this sort of energy and beauty and power and creativity, and wanting to find a way to collaborate. That's what's here right now today, is like, because one lady's just offered that she'll go to the new local for us and do the course. And I'm like, I'm super excited, because I loved the new local video that we watched last week, and I haven't got the time to go and attend, but if someone from Wise Women Rising can go attend and collect it all. So she's willing, Jeanette's willing. Yay. I'm like, yay, we get, as a community, we get to harvest and learn from that experience that she's going to go and do. And I think that's the same with the funding side. It's not my strong suit. And I'm sort of needing some help around that too. So I need to talk to the group and see who might be willing to help. But, you know, I think it's possible, and I think it's the right time. And I certainly think as an organisation, we're well positioned to start to go to the seropodists.
I don't even know if that's how you say it. I didn't realise they were such a national network. They seem to me like a Rotary, but just for women. That was my first impression of them when I went to look. Like older women, not 60 plus, more 70 plus. Oh, that's right.
But a national network of women looking after women's issues. I'm like, where have you been?
Well,
it would have been nice to know you existed. Like I would have.
Well, probably they're not very digitally savvy, and therefore, how would we know?
Exactly. And then now just turning up, it's like perfect timing. It's almost like divine timing. We're getting connected to everybody all of a sudden. They're getting connected to us. Like, yeah, I'm hopeful, because my thought was, well, Rita's from the same organisation.
Is she? Okay.
From Geelong. So she's the Geelong branch. And my question was, in my email back was, I think I sent it to you. I don't think I sent it to her. But it was, I wonder if they're trying to come up with a national strategy, or whether their branches just do local things.
No, you didn't send that to me, or I didn't get that. Yeah.
Okay, right. So that's my question, and that was one of my curiosities. It's like, does Geelong look after Geelong region, and does the district? Because I have an uncle in Rotary, and he's been in Rotary for like 30 years. And from the side, I have seen like the extraordinary power of having a big network like Rotary, and how well they get funded, and how well they get support, how well their people turn up and do all the sausage sizzles. Like, you know, they're a very powerful grassroots organisation across the country, with masses of members. I had no idea how much of an organisation.
Interesting. Yeah.
They're like a web of actually getting the job done. Like, you know, when you think about the amount of volunteers in the world, a lot of volunteers end up in big organisations like that, and they have power, and then they get funding, and then they can put youth programs into action, and you know, they could probably look at older women's housing issues as a collective. Like, and I've thought about it with my uncle, but my sense is I'd have to go to him with something much more prepared and tangible, and a document that he could pass on, because he's not the right person to be decision making about it, but he could certainly get it into the network. And so there's options. But I think it's like us knowing more clearly as well what we want in terms of conversation starters. Like to come to the table and go, well, we just need money. That's not going to fly. It's got to be like, we've started something like Wink, or we've got a vision for what our needs are. And like for me, I've thought of like something with a conference center in it. Like for me, I go, if I think of housing option, I go something where we could be earning an income from the property, not just living there. And so for me, I've gone through like, we could get a pub, a cafe, like we could take over a property that's big enough to house people, but also run a cafe out of it. Like there was a property in Williamstown I looked at last year that I was like, oh, this is so cute. It was like straight out of like a storybook. It was 3 stories, not straight up and down. It was like very oldie worldy, like a twisty sort of fireplace on the side. It was hugely character, beautifully detailed inside. Like each of the rooms had been used as bed and breakfast rooms, so they had their own. Like it was gorgeous, and I was like, where are the people to fund this? Like it's a perfect property, and it already had a cafe in it, like because they run a commercial kitchen out of it.
Yeah.
Like, well, there's our commercial kitchen, there's our social enterprise, that's how we retrain, like people could live here. So this is
where was that, Karen? Where was that property?
It was on the main street at the bottom of Williamstown, like right next to, across from the beach in the heart, like where all the boats are. It was just like lifestyle, but I was too far ahead of myself for looking at the properties. I didn't have I hadn't done my work yet. So my sense is that there's one foot in front of the other, because that may not meet everybody's needs. That's just me dreaming. I'm wanting to do it as a collaborative and go, okay, who here actually needs a housing option as a retirement plan? Like who's not yet got a housing option? Who's still paying rent and finding it they're living month to month? Because I would put myself in that category. And then I would say, well, who else is with me? Like who's in that category? Small amount of savings, living month to month. If something went wrong, you'd be up that proverbial creek. Let's start to have a conversation. Now, what would we like to be in the business of? Would we rather have a cafe, a conference, central conference area where we continue to run all of our programs and invite people in, so we're earning money from the property where we invest? Do we want it to be more of a social investment, like it's a cafe bar where we can have gatherings, but now see with COVID, all of that's pretty much gone out the window. Doesn't it? It just throws a whole different spanner in the works. So thank goodness you didn't buy the Williamstown property. You would have been just... We couldn't have run the social cafe right now anyway. Yeah. And I met someone at the time, and I wonder whether or not she referred this friend of hers, because with NDIS, a lot of money got poured into NDIS as a system to buy properties to set up people who had disabilities to be able to be looked after, right? So I happened to be talking to a lady who set up a business as a consequence of NDIS. She developed a tech platform that could connect all the NDIS service providers with someone who was receiving an NDIS payment. They could go log in, share all their needs, and then different service providers could come and look after their needs. And she knew this fellow who was going around Australia just buying up big properties to like ex-nursing homes and converting them into new properties for NDIS recipients who wanted housing security. And I'm like, tick, 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 tick. That makes sense to me. And if there's government money to do that for disabilities, then there's going to be money coming for women who are in this very similar fragile position, who are now being seen in the data, because now the data's being validating that I'm not the only one having this experience. And there's also social care, like these women wanting to look at how can we invest in capital for women's housing projects. So I'm like, okay, timing is getting better.
Yes, yes.
Now is the time for us to organise and collaborate so we can have a shared vision and a shared voice about what we're wanting. Like if it's a lovely little property with some tiny houses on it with a conference centre in the middle. I've seen one in the States very similar to that. And I've just gone, that's ideal. Like then everyone has their own property, their own garden. But it's got a social, it was actually built for homeless veterans, and it had a community centre in the middle with a shared barbecue. And so it's building in that fabric. And then I've joined a Facebook group called PermaWild.
Oh, yeah.
And PermaWild is about having that vision, but then building all the biodiversity into it and the biodynamic farming, so we can all be not only sustainable housing, but sustainable gardening and have food sources. Food security is the other big one. Anyway, that's enough. Woo! I'm powering down for a bit. I'm just going to
power down indeed. And I feel super fortunate that we've come into each other's spheres, because it's, you know, so many overlapping wonderfulness, and it's great. So thank you for trying to get this meeting going today. And
that's all right. I'll see if Rita gets back to me and we can catch up with her another time, hopefully. And my sense is that, like, as if we I'm heading towards the membership conversation weekend, which is the welcome sessions. And what I'm thinking is I can show everyone into the website and how we can set up our special interest village hubs. And I'm thinking you and I could maybe inspire a village hub around housing. And then, you know, be a touch point for other people to come and support that, bring us information, bring us connections. But if we set up a hub for it in the membership, and like there's already other hubs like NBC and stuff starting to happen in the membership naturally. So I just want to give a platform and an organisation strategy for that.
Yeah, that sounds great, Karen, because certainly the sense from today's one was people want to connect. And it's like, how can I find you? How can I connect with you? And wouldn't it be just lovely if you had a platform that was doing that?
Yeah, well, the time bank, we already have the bank accounts for our time bank. So we've got like a time bank section. People who come in as members can join a hub, like a village hub, where they can belong and contribute and have passionate areas. They can give their work into whether it's the retreat format or however we expand that out so that people are being able to develop their precious work. And basically I've just started to look at this article about providing alternate economic systems. And when you provide things like ability to earn an income and a time bank and things like that, you're starting to build all the structural formats for an economically sustainable system. Like we don't have food security in ours yet. We don't have housing security in ours yet, but it has the potential to blossom in a really empowering way. So I'll share a link to the document that I'm just looking at now, which has got this map about not only do we organise the housing piece, but we organise all these hubs of activity that can support sustainability, emergent sustainability coming out of the COVID reality. That's my thinking is at that level, that we're wanting to emerge healthy social fabric, healthy security around housing and food, and obviously, you know, fresh air and a stable environment. But, you know, there's this sense of, there's a movement forward here that I think collectively we can speak to, and we can't do it all by ourselves anymore. Like when I was a socially isolated, I wish the system was different voice. You know, I could not be heard. The din of the system was way too large and my voice was so small and disempowered, it just didn't have a chance. But now I'm like, no, things are changing.
You are a woman to know. Yes.
Changing. So yeah, I'm in a joyful, hopeful, like I've had my tears already today. Like you go through it, being an open-hearted human at this point in the world. It's pretty intense, but I do feel really grateful for our connection, and I look forward to seeing what will flourish out of our mutual appreciation of the housing issue for women, and your group, and like how we support people and network people together. And I would hope that the hub will be up in August, and I hope that if I can get some people, well, it's already sort of built, it just needs an explanation for everybody to come in and flourish it. And it's more now, like if I want to act on the funding thing, it needs to be by the end of August. So to have submitted by the end of August so that it can start to be spent before December. That's their request. They want to basically help people now. And I'm like, well, we could run, because we're already talking about running another mini retreat for Women's Health Week, which is in September.
Okay.
It's the 7th to the 13th, I think, of September. I have to look at the dates. Women's Health Week. And there's a whole cluster of different events being offered, and Wise Women Rising, I'm like, yep, I'll go and just apply and let them know we're going to run something, and then we'll figure it out amongst ourselves how we're going to offer it and stuff. So yeah, there's plenty happening. Exciting time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go rest my head.
Are you still caring as well during all of this? Are you still in your caring role?
My beautiful 16-year-old son, but he's much more self-reliant than the person I cared for 15 years, who is now is independent, happy, healthy and strong after 15 years of addiction, has recovered, is strong and healthy, and is actually a huge contribution to his family now. He's caring for his aging mother. So it's like, it's a beautiful story of restoration for us. And it's meant that at this time in my life, for the first time, I can use my energies for other things.
And look at you go with them. It's just so exciting. So I'm so pleased I've met you, Karen. And
ditto. Thank you for being there this morning and bringing all that beautiful update. I feel excited that there's really lovely women that we can connect with, and once we're a bit more established at Wise Women Rising, we can actually go with more readiness to meet some of these women, state and national level. But I'm just going to breathe.
And then hopefully you can bounce off some of the expertise in our group of the women that are going out there and making these meetings happen with, representatives, because like our commitment is to share everything we learn along the way. So.
Awesome. It's really, really awesome. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Talk a bit later. Bye for now. Bye.